Councillor Gallagher and I are happy with that wording.
Great. Right.
Right, I'm happy to speak to it.
Yep.
Okay, so one of the values of productive questioning in the council chamber and when we have committee meetings is it enables us to make sure that the staff recommendation is relevant and appropriate. Because during that productive questioning, other things might arise. And so I make no apologies for taking a little bit of time to get this right and to ensure that things that are important to some of my council colleagues are accurately recorded in the work that is going to be done. And I'm happy to have assisted them today to do that. I'm happy that we are doing this report, and I think it's quite important just to think historically about where we are today. The social wellbeing strategy was developed by the council 3 terms ago, and so that was before my time, and in fact I think there'd be very few councillors here who were part of developing that, but certainly Councillor McPherson will remember that. And it was a strategy developed up with the assistance of community members and key stakeholders. And last council term, it was reviewed with that same group of stakeholders. I participated in that. In my view, it is appropriate, as we agreed in December last year, that a strategy is no longer appropriate and that an indicator report is the way to go. And I think this will be a very, very useful piece of information. So I'm certainly very supportive of the decision that we made in December last year. If you combine that with the work of the Community Forum Subcommittee and its sort of brief, if you like, I think that subcommittee would find this information very useful if it still continues next year. But more importantly, we are not the doer of everything in the city, no doubt about that. But what we are, though, and what we have a vested interest in, is understanding how our community functions and how it is, you know, what the well-being of it is. And we have a big role to play in that because we enable a lot of things in the community. So while we won't be the doer, I would imagine, of almost everything on this list, it'll certainly give us a good indication of how we're feeling about living in the city, the good and the bad, and also, more importantly, make sure that we continue to be in touch with the community that we are elected to represent. So I would encourage councillors to really embrace this report because I think it'll be very, very useful. Thank you.
Councillor Gallagher as the second.
I'll reserve my contribution.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes, thanks. I couldn't decide whether to think of this as the Uncle Tom Cobley report or the All Things to All People report. It's probably the best example in recent times of a nice to have item there, but is it necessary? And in my opinion, it's distinctly unnecessary. What it replaces is a thing called the Social Wellbeing Strategy that the Mayor talked about that was upgraded last time. Now, I'm not a fan of all things strategy, but I do think that they are more likely to lead you in certain directions, and as long as you agree with the direction, I suppose that's a good thing. The trouble with a report is it doesn't lead you in any direction. It just tells you in a historical sense what has been happening, and the historical sense is there's quite a time lag when you look at some of the when you look at census figures, for instance, a big time lag by the time those figures get to your table. Certainly it's not a looking forward document, it's a looking backwards document. I believe that the reason some people want to get rid of the strategy that we had before, and as I said, it wasn't the greatest thing since sliced bread in its own right, but the reason people want to get rid of is that we were not able and not trying to meet several of the objectives in it. And it became uncomfortable to have a strategy where we weren't trying to follow it. So get rid of that, let's just do a measure of what's already happening in the city. And then the things that are going well compared with anywhere else, we'll shout from the rooftops. We'll be quiet about the things that aren't going so well, perhaps. I suggest that that's how it's having it. The Uncle Tom Cobley part came in when someone mentions immigration, let's add a couple of things in there, make sure we get your vote, Philip, etc., things like that. I think this is an absolute mishmash. It doesn't deliver anything new that wasn't happening in the city or being measured in the city or being measured about the city somewhere already. What's important to me here is not what has been happening in the city in the sense that the Mayor talked about. It's important to get those facts and figures. What's important to me is that families are able to live here in a comfortable and sustainable and reasonable way, that kids have recreation facilities they need for good development, that old folk can live in the city in dignity, and that people can move around in a sustainable way around the city. It's not important. In fact, I believe the reason we are elected to this organisation and the reason we employ competent staff is because we know all those sorts of things, information, background, and we know where to find the background information that would come out in a report like this, and it's our job to try and put in place actions to implement strategies that actually lead to those sorts of outcomes that I just listed before. If we don't already have those sort of objectives in mind, I don't know what we're doing. Instead of putting this huge and absolutely ridiculous emphasis tonight on having this sort of survey, when we all can already get all of those figures, I can't believe the amount of time that's been wasted on this. I can't believe that anyone would support it. I'm not even necessarily opposed to it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't amount to a hill of beans, in my opinion. Whether we do it or not is not going to make any difference. What's going to make difference is what council is doing in certain areas of the city. Now, you might be one that thinks, well, we shouldn't be looking after kids' recreation facilities. We should only be looking after roads, rates and rubbish and so forth. Well, that's fine, but at least that's a practical orientation. This council has gone right away from a practical orientation. We've been spending most of our time debating plans, reports, strategies and things like that, and very little about doing anything. You know, the saying in modern Māoridom, more dui, less hui. We should take that on board.
Thank you, Councillor. Further speakers?
I'll speak.
Councillor King?
Hamilton is a great place to live. Cost of living is affordable. Jobs are from different sectors: education, medical, farming, light industry. We don't have natural disasters. But above all, our people are generally content. They're not pretentious. They're honest. And at times, you wouldn't know what end of the socio-economic scale the people that you meet and rub shoulders with are at, where they are on the scale. Hamilton doesn't need a report to say whether we're good or bad. We aren't students receiving a report card rating us between A and F. Let's just live in our city and enjoy it and continue to build on the honest history that we have, build it into a great place and live in it, have fun and get on with it. This is one of the best places in New Zealand to live.
Councillor Gallagher?
Yes, I always strongly believe that local government has a key role in social wellbeing, and I respect the frustration observations of Councillor McPherson, and I acknowledge that we always have a danger in anything we do becomes no more than a coffee table book, nice to look at. I'm genuinely hoping by the quantity and the quality and the comprehensiveness of this data, it will go way, way beyond that traditional sort of approach, and that this should inform us in all that we do. And I think that it's very important that we do use a range of data collection. And I'll just take, for example, I looked at the health and wellbeing. We've added a wee bit to it. But, you know, for example, the emergency department visits with regard to drug and alcohol abuse, quite important. We're in the middle of a local alcohol plan. There is a whole lot of issues around the so-called or not robustness of data collection, because nothing's static. You know, our local, and I'm just using it as an example, a local alcohol plan is not a static document fixed for all time. It's something that will always be reviewed, turned over, etc., etc. We look at a whole range of these things. I think Councillor McPherson talked about families are able to live here in comfort, sustainable city. I think all this data actually will assist us in wanting to have a type of community I think most of us want to have, and that's, you know, socially just community. Councillor Mallett said, well, what's loneliness got to do with local government? Actually, it's got a heck of a lot to do with local government. We've got to do our bit to make sure that we care for our population as a whole, and we work with the voluntary sector and the district health board, and we do everything we can to create the conditions of, you know, good library service, gymnasiums, the wonderful volunteers that help in the volleyball and the netball, all of these things that actually make us a cohesive whole as a city. Those are things, we don't do it all, we can't do everything, but we do things in partnership. For example, it is very important that we do have good, high-quality data that we can get down at a micro level. We want to know what's happening in a neighbourhood. I want to know what's happening in, say, a neighbourhood, because that's going to impact on my advocacy for the green space, for the local library, the playground, the potential job programs, all of that, even the DHB services. I think it's very important that we also work with those other agencies. I think that's all I have to say. I mean, I think the test of an incoming council will be how we take this data and how we actually enact it, and how focused we are in trying to achieve a social well-being for our city. And to be honest, I hope Councillor McPherson's perspective doesn't prove my approach wrong, because I obviously care deeply around that social well-being, and I think, and I hope, this material will assist us in getting a better city for all.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further speakers before I go to the Mayor for right to reply? Councillor Young.
Unless you arrive in Hamilton after 2013, I think you involved somehow in the census 2013 or even 2006 or 2001. So why the government is doing that? Is let the government know about everything, population movement, education, health, everything. And what we are doing now is exactly what we want something for Hamilton. This is for Hamilton. And I disagree that we are not doing anything but just getting all the data, because what we are doing here now is to help us or guide us the way we go forward, what to do next. And I wish we can really measure loneliness for elderly people, because the older person action plan can able to attack that and able to address some of the issues. But I think unfortunately we may not be able to measure those. So some of the stuff we can do, but most important is to get the information so we know what's going to happen, what we can do to address some of the issues. So to me, I fully support the motion, and we need this information.
Right, thank you, Councillor. Your Worship, right to reply?
No.
No? Okay. I'm going to put that motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands.
That's Councillors O'Leary, Chesterman, Young, Gallagher, Her Worship the Mayor Hardacre, Councillors Pascoe and Tooman.
And those against?
Councillors King, McPherson, Green and Mallet. The motion is carried.
Lovely, thank you. Thanks, guys. All right, we've only got 5 items left. So we're on to item 10, page 58, which is a report that was deferred from the last committee meeting, the 6-monthly report from the Chair of the Business Investment Subcommittee. And I'll go to Her Worship the Mayor to present the report.
I'll move that the report be accepted. I have nothing further to add.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Happy to second.
And seconded by Councillor Pascoe. Is there any questions on the report? Right, there being no questions, that's been moved by Her Worship, seconded by Councillor Pascoe. Is there any debate, Your Worship?
No.
No. Any speakers? No, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? No, that's carried. Thanks, Mary. Right, item 7, Regional Roundup Report. Hi, Luke. We haven't seen you for a while.
I've been here.
Oh, I'm sure you have. All right, and as the committee knows, of course, this is a regular report that is a roundup report of all the strategic things in the region that we're involved in. So, Luke, you can take the report as read. Is there anything in particular you need to highlight to the committee?
Not from my perspective, Councillor. As I said, I'm here as a proxy on behalf of Blair, who's away
Yep.
overseas, returning this week, but I'm happy to take any questions from any elected members on any part of the report.
Thank you. Councillor Pascoe.
Yes, just in paragraph 57, I'm just a little bit confused with the last sentence. It talks about the Waikato plan, and then the last sentence says the Waikato connecting with Hamilton project. Now, I presume that means the Waikato plan.
Sorry, what page are you on, Ron?
Paragraph 57, page 65.
Okay.
It's
57.
paragraph 57, last sentence, it says the Waikato connecting with, and then it says the Hamilton project, and I don't know what the Hamilton project is. Is that the Hamilton plan?
No, it's not the Hamilton plan. That's good. That last sentence, I take your point, should have been or could have been expressed better than it has been. But the Waikato connecting with Hamilton project, I think, is just an error.
So what is it? It's the Waikato plan connecting with the Hamilton.
No, Waikato connecting with Hamilton.
So leave the
Plan.
words project.
Yes.
Leave the word project.
Well, I think it'd just be easier.
Waikato connecting with Hamilton.
I think just that last sentence is actually struck from the report. I think it's just an error.
Struck. Okay.
Down the memory hole.
Sounds very legal.
I've become a bush lawyer, so.
Thank
See,
you.
Blair would have figured that out.
No comment.
Okay.
If only Blair were here.
Yeah, I can ask him on Thursday.
Councillor Pascoe, any further
Yeah,
questions?
that was the only question.
Can I just ask a question on page 62, just under the policy and bylaw work stream?
Yes.
Are you? It would seem that to me that if the Mayoral Forum was working through this program, they have budget and staff, and we have contributed to that work program, rather than us then spending time once they've done a report, writing another report based on their report, that we would receive it directly from their group and actually take benefit of them working collaboratively with the other councils. Is that the intention of how it's going to be reported back? You might actually not know.
Can I just be clear? Are you talking about it's the area
Point 12.
under paragraph
13.
13?
Yeah. The policy and bylaw work.
Yes. So that my understanding is in relation to in particular the Easter trading bylaw.
Yeah.
That's our staff representative who's providing the interface, and that is Julie Clausen. The CEO of South Waikato District Council, Craig Hobbs, is the project sponsor for that particular work stream. It's been put on hold because the bill introducing Easter trading hasn't gone through yet.
Yeah.
And once that's occurred, and then there's that alignment work then can be completed. But I take your point. I think that if there was a report to the Mayoral Forum, it could just be simply appended to a report to come through this committee.
I guess I'm just, I know how long this policy work takes, and if we do have a group of people doing the work, then I would hope that there would be some cost benefit to us of repeating, simply accepting what they're saying as feedback, but then crafting the whole thing ourselves. Because, in Julie, step up. Because, I am interested in the Easter trading policy and what they will come out of that, and if there is collaboration between the regions, because I think this is going to be a sticky one if it goes through Parliament. But it's a good one to start with, to get it right, to try and do some cost savings, because that's why we're doing this work. That's what the Mayoral Forum is all about.
Yes, Chair. The work has been put on hold, and the
Yeah.
Easter trading one is the first one they've flagged to start looking at. There's a meeting next month to start looking at this again, and me and my team are involved, and so we'll come back through this forum with anything that comes out of that work.
I guess also we have an item coming up soon on this agenda around the policy review that this council has done and this committee has done, and that work's been considerable as well. I know that the Mayoral Forum is doing a work stream in that. Again, you know, I would hope that we don't end up with, and I know we wouldn't with the Mayor involved in those discussions, but that we wouldn't end up with some kind of piece of work that involved us reviewing everything that we've done to align it to something that the work group in the Mayoral Forum was doing. I guess that's a note of caution, but I'm sure that that's being picked up. Councillor Mallett, then Councillor McPherson.
Thank you. On page 62, paragraph 22, Strategic Waters, talks about the government consultation document, Next Steps for Fresh Water, is being considered and will be reported separately. Then it talks about the Waikato Regional Council has prepared a consultation document called Let's Talk Water. Is it logical to have the Waikato Regional Council working on a water document whilst the central government is also working on a water document which could have significant changes to ownership and access to and things like that?
Yeah.
And maybe that's not the right question to ask you guys.
No, I'm happy to answer it. Look, I suppose there's a couple of things going on there in relation to the water policy area. It's quite in this region in particular, it's quite different from the rest of New Zealand in the sense that we've got the vision and strategy. So that's formally locked in through legislation, certain commitments to improving the quality of the Waikato River. And
that's called what?
It's called the vision and strategy. So
okay. Is this the relationship with Tainui, etc.?
So there's a specific act of Parliament that was passed, I think, back in 2008 or 2009 that gave co-management rights around the Waikato River, and the vision and strategy came out of that, and that is part of the regional policy statement. Okay. So that has quite directive obligations around actually improving water quality beyond what we're currently experiencing at the moment. So that's driving this Healthy Rivers plan change at the moment that's anticipated to be notified later on this year. The national policy statement work that's been driven by central government is something different, but is related. And that discussion document, which you received at Finance and Committee, I think a week or two ago, and endorsed its submission. So that's talking very generically about possible changes to the national policy statement around water. So it will have an impact on how councils manage water, but the detail wasn't really in that discussion paper. It was really more around ideas that could be included in the national policy statement, whereas the Healthy Rivers work is a very specific directive piece of work, and then this Let's Talk Water is an additional consultation document that the region has decided to produce around water management, because I think Healthy Rivers plan change, once it comes out, it may have some far-reaching ramifications for all water users in this region.
Anything that comes out of Let's Talk Water would be subject to alteration or being voided possibly by the national conversation.
Well, I think you would find, and this was in our submission, that it was raised by Paul when he came here, was to say, well, look, anything in the MPS needs to ensure that it doesn't conflict with the vision and strategy, because that's a separate act of Parliament, so they have to talk to each other. So we've made that, and I'm sure there's other parties in this region that are making the same observations to MFE.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes, just looking at those two little bits that have just been questioned about. Firstly, 22 and the Regional Council and its water document, consultation document. Just hearing a report on some recent findings as to poor water quality in dairy farming areas particularly, but also other farming areas, starting off with a report from Northland. Transpired from listening to the ministry official that was being interviewed when I listened to them, that their estimation was that Northland was looking like it was doing badly because they had a much higher inspection ratio, and then they compared that with Waikato's inspection ratio, where they inspected every property every year in Northland. they did something like 1 in 4 in the Waikato, and therefore it had a lower, appeared to have a lower figure. Plus in Waikato, the inspections were pre-announced and pre-arranged so that you could, make sure your water was clean that day, or wasn't being sort of pushed down the stream from the effluent from the shed, for instance. So I don't know much more than this in-depth interview that I was listening about it, but I wondering whether, since the regional council is so interested in clean water, they could have a look at that, since that's a specific area of responsibility, whether you could ask them nicely to consider that when they're doing Let's Talk Water stuff.
Look, I think once the Healthy Rivers Plan change in particular is notified, then I suspect that at some points there'll be a report to S&P or through this council around that document, and my recommendation is those matters around inspection could be addressed in that submission once the document is actually released.
If you could alert us to when that comes.
Oh yeah. Yep.
The other one was just in 13 and 15, where 13 we're up the top of the same page where the chair raised a point. I can see there's a lot of alphabet soup up there, and I understand from the reference to what RITS means, and I can see I know what LAS means, but blowed if I can tell what RATA means in that area.
Roading?
Enlighten me.
Yeah, paragraph 47, it expands that acronym.
I should look after that, not in front.
Look, I take your point, and I apologise for any confusion, but it stands for the Road Asset Technical Accord.
Oh, silly me, I should have known.
I apologise.
Right, any further questions? No. Do I have a mover for the recommendation, which is that the report be received? Thank you. Oh, Councillor Pascoe, and seconded by Councillor McPherson. Is there any debate, Councillor Pascoe? No. Councillor McPherson? No. Okay, all those in favour? Is there any against? That's carried. Great, thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
Right, policy, bylaw and review program and update. This is basically a report that this committee, a review program that we commenced at the start of this triennial, although I know that some of the numbers here are from 2010. There was a review that had commenced, but it was a little slow for some of us. So we did speed this council did speed this up. And if I can just, before you present the report, Julie, say that when I was appointed as chair, in looking at the past 2 terms of the way that we did review policies, and being a new councillor, I found it quite difficult to get to grips with the line in the sand of what the organisation, what our stand was on the rules that govern our city. So I wondered if it would not be better to put that into a manual for the incoming council, and I know that you've mentioned this in the report, so we are still on target for that, and I think that that's great news. So you can take the report as read, and the Mayor has indicated a motion with some additional stuff in it, but before we do that, are there any questions on the report? And I think there will be one more report coming, is that right? 1 or 2 more reports before the end of the year?
Yes,
We're pretty much at the tip of the iceberg now. We've done an awful lot of work.
We would like to have another report coming in June.
Yeah.
I've got some questions, because it's just about these 2 policies left for review. So I guess the first question's to Mary, because Jude's isn't here, or it might be
To Brendan.
to David Bryant. Citizens initiated referenda, so that one's still to review, right? So I was going to suggest in the motion that the democracy manager could have a look at that and just come back to us on that, because I understand that there's legislation that defines that, but our policy is a little bit different to that. So would that work? I wanted to make sure that worked.
Yes, Your Worship, maybe if I answer that, we have got Jude down scheduled to lead that review.
No, but I'm talking about like now, as in getting on with it. I was going to move a motion about doing it. Is that going to cause any issues? No? Okay.
No, I don't think from a democracy perspective it would.
Good. The roads, reserves and park naming policy. So I saw that as Kelvin, city growth. Because that's in the planning, it's run out of planning, but it's got roading implications, but I understand it's a planning matter. So Kelvin, can your people look at that? Because I know that councillors have raised some issues about the inconsistency between that and the guidelines and the ambiguity in the policy. Is it you, Chris, or is it Kelvin?
So through you, Madam Chair, it's been a combination of myself and Lance for the road naming and park policy.
Right,
So,
but I understand the guidelines are administered by the planning department. I think that's the issue, really. You see where I'm going here, right?
so
Okay.
we will need to sort that ownership out.
All right.
Your Worship, this is
Give
one
it to
where
Richard.
staff have actually have started the work on this.
Yes, no.
It's a sort of a hangover from
Yes,
previous
I
structure,
was just-
so
Yep,
it's just a case of updating there.
Yep. All right.
They've been passed around.
Okay, so that's answered my questions. And then, look, the other matter, Madam Chair, was I recall that at the last, about this time in the last term, the existing council did turn their minds to a review of the standing orders, because over that term, you know, we'd raised issues about interpretation, or did that paragraph work anymore, or... So I was going to suggest in my motion that we, a councillor group form and work with Jude to have a look at that, so that all the issues that have arisen in this term could be fed in, and that's what we did last term, so that could be picked up by the users of the policy, as opposed to a new council coming in and not being familiar with the use of it. So I was going to include that with a suggestion that a small group of councillors work with Jude to have another look at that and pick up any of our comments on the way, because I know there are some ambiguities about, you know, we have this question all the time about if we passed a motion in the last meeting, can we do another motion, and all those things. So I was going to suggest those. So I was going to ask Mary, in the absence of Jude, sorry, is that also something that you would be happy to do and are able to do? Yeah, I mean, you've got time to do it. And
Whether we've got time is another issue, but dealing with the standing orders would be something that we'd appreciate feedback from elected members on.
okay,
Yeah,
all right. So, and Jude would be okay about doing that?
Yeah, in her
In
absence.
her absence, you're saying yes, right. Okay. So I just wanted to clarify those things, and then I can move a motion when you're ready.
Okay,
Just
councillor
on that
McPherson, yeah.
point, standing orders, I think the standing orders need to be, I have no problems us starting this, but I think they should be, as a matter of good practice, be finalised by the incoming council, because there will be some areas where there is choice about which direction you move, a lot of areas where there isn't, but the ones where there's choice should be the choice of the incoming council about to finally promulgate them, if that's the word.
Because the incoming council formally has to formally accept them anyway, don't they? The first council meeting,
They do,
I think.
yeah.
Yes, they do.
They do, so they
Yeah,
could make
so-
changes then, yeah.
Yeah.
So shall I stick the motion
So
up? and
stick the
then-
motion up,
Okay.
yeah,
So it's easy, the
Stick it up.
report to be received, that's an easy one.
yeah.
And then the second one would be the citizens initiated referenda policy. That the democracy manager undertake a review of the citizens initiated referenda policy and report back to the Strategy and Policy Committee's June meeting. B. That,
Well, you've got time, Mary.
because as I understand it, that's a very short policy, and it's probably okay or whatever. I don't know, it might just be nothing, yeah. That the general managers, with the plural there, because it seems there's 3 involved, and that's probably, therein raises my issue, undertake a review of the roads, reserve and park naming policy, and I would like to add in brackets, but please don't, and please rename it, close brackets, but don't add that in.
We have a policy, naming policy.
Yes, and make recommendations to the July council meeting. And that gives you a couple of months, you're right about that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, he's okay about that? July council. Sorry, strategy and policy, yeah. Right, okay. And C would be that, now, Chair, it might be useful if people want to put their hands up about this, that a working group is established with the following councillors, and to work with the democracy manager to review the standing orders and report back to the July strategy and policy meeting. And I mean, that might be, we need more work, or it might be, you know, but it gives them a couple of months to do it.
I'd be interested in doing that,
As I would.
being on that.
Me too.
And Councillor Pascoe?
Councillor Mallett's
Councillor Mallett.
quite good on spelling issues.
Yes, he
Grammar
is.
issues.
And plain English, he's good at that.
Yep.
Is there anyone else keen to start at the 10? Councillor Gallagher?
Is that helpful or not?
No.
Of course it's
If you don't think it's helpful, I won't do it.
No.
Us it is, but not if you're on the
Councillor McPherson said
committee.
not. It's not helpful.
Right, better listen to my friend then.
No, so I'm sorry, he said it.
Well, he's a good friend.
No, you wouldn't accept that from one of us. Come
So
on.
Mary, have you got that? Right, thank you.
Okay,
So I'm happy to move that.
okay, I'm happy to second that.
So the names of the councillors, I think, were the chair and
Pascoe,
councillor
Mallett.
Pascoe and councillor Mallett. And councillor
Councillor
Gallagher did
Gallagher.
offer, but councillor McPherson said not, so.
Oh,
I think there was widespread agreement.
Oh, right, widespread views on that, sorry. Perhaps you could be an expert advisor to the group, councillor Gallagher. Consultant.
Been in a drip under pressure. It's all cool.
Just, Chris, in relation to that road naming one, you might want to get some feedback from councillors about that, because I know Martin certainly has had some views about it, because it is very ambiguous. Might be a briefing or something, I don't know. Something like that. I think it requires a bit of input, that's all. So I think that's clear. I mean, if councillors are pretty clear on that, do we need to wait? Or?
Just
Has
read it out
everyone-
again, that's all.
I got the second and the third one. I didn't quite get word for word the first one, that was all. But I know it's around the citizens initiated referendum. Is everyone clear on the motion?
The citizens initiated referenda one
To
will
be
be
reviewed.
reviewed by democracy manager and report back in June.
Yep, general managers.
That the road naming one, GMs are going to review that and make a recommendation to the July meeting. And 3 councillors in Jude are going to review the standing orders and come back in July. All right, so yep, we're all clear on it.
Okay. It's got to be typed anyway, but all right. So are there any questions on that? I think we're all clear. Your Worship, did you want to say anything?
I just want to briefly commend all of the councillors actually on the work that's been done on these policies, because you'll see in paragraph 11, I think that makes really important reading, and I note that 4 policies will come off that when the councillors, the elected member support policy comes into being. And I think that's a really good reflection of the work that's been done, and also that we should be able to say by the end of this process, when we get the final report from Julie, that the policies that we have in place are the ones that are needed, and that there aren't any superfluous or irrelevant policies that are of no value. So I just want to thank everyone for that work, because I know some councillors have participated in working groups and done quite a lot of work on some of these policies. And dare I mention it, there's been a considerable amount of work done on gambling and alcohol. I'm looking at the general manager there who knows it inside out now. And I note with enthusiasm that the next council will be looking at prostitution.
Prostitution.
Oh,
Next
You
council.
are standing.
I'll go on that one.
Thank you, Chair.
thank you. I seconded that, didn't I? Look, I just want to echo what the Mayor has just said and thank everyone for their contribution. This was something that was certainly important to many members. When you finish talking about the prostitution policy, It was important to a lot of members, and it's had a considerable impact on cutting red tape, and I think that's always a good thing. You know, particularly in this committee where a lot of members have spoken quite strongly about or against the need for some policies and constantly cutting red tape. So I think that you know, we're getting to a really good result, and for me, the cream on the top of this is the manual, so that the new coming council will be able to look at that book and decide all of the policies, where their line is, you know, however they've campaigned and gone out there and looked for support and said, this is what's important to me. They will be able to see what this current council has, how we've drawn a line in the sand and what we've said the rules that are important to the city, and they'll be able to change that at their will easily, I believe. So I'm very supportive of this and look forward to the final Bible of policies coming to us.
Can I just suggest that D should say that I work with the democracy manager to review the standing orders?
The 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Food safety staff have engaged management.
Yep.
And I think at C, just to make it consistent, road naming and report back rather than make recommendations, because then it's all consistent. Thank you.
Okay. Any further speakers? No? I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Are there any against? None against? That's carried. Thank you. Right, second to last item. Thanks, Julie. Second to last item is on page 77, the action list, and pending HCC submissions. And I'm going to go to the GM. I think there's a couple of updates on the action list. See, computer is faster than paper. I'm there already.
77. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, committee members.
So just a few updates on the action list. So the Wairiri Drive Cobham, Wairiri Drive Cobham Drive overbridge.
What number is that?
That is number.
Page 78.
Sorry.
Or page 78, is it?
78.
Sorry.
Thank you. So that's going to due to come back to the next S&P committee. Sorry, let me just find the number for you.
Number 4, is it?
Very small number down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Number 4 on the attachment.
Number 4.
All right, yep.
On page 79. So that's due to come back to next S&P committee. The work involved in following up on some of the discussion at last S&P committee has taken longer.
Sorry, Sean. Page
4.
on page 79.
Page 79.
Where are...
70,
Oh, okay, so it's page 78 of mine.
78.
Okay.
So on page 78, it has the summary of the deferrals, and then on page 79 has the detail in the table.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just referring to page 70. Sorry. Yeah, with respect, I don't have a page 78 actually. I just realised. So page 77, and then it goes to page 79. Okay.
And there's another update?
Yep. So the social housing strategy. The meeting was held last week, and actually that is now going to come back to July S&P, and the Hamilton Lake Domain Reserve Management Plan, that is now due to come back to July as well. And just on the action list, the gambling policy has been, the action has been completed as of the last council meeting. And the Ruakura trees, the action was to send the executive update, which has also been completed. So they're the key changes.
And of course, on page 77 are the items that need to, staff are requesting to be deferred. So that's included, in the resolution on page 77. So are there any questions, Your Worship?
I think, sorry, Philip was first. You go, Philip.
On page 78, the second last item there, can I have some update on Wairiri Drive and Huntington Drive West, the intersection?
We don't have a 78.
Any updates on that?
So Wairiri Drive, Huntington Drive West intersection, that's the item?
Well, 14 here. Is that 14?
Yeah, number 14 on the table. Chris Allen is going to speak to that.
So we're going through a process of an independent report on that intersection. That report, I understand, got delivered late on Friday. The report has gone to the community group and it's gone to City Transport. So I think I've got something in my diary, but within 2 weeks we're getting together to review all of the evidence and to make a recommendation from staff. We'll make a decision on staff.
Is it a new one or a new report?
It's the report that's been done by Opus. So what we offered to it's the Opus report where we offered the community the opportunity to engage with Opus to make sure they understood, Opus understood their problems. We gave them an opportunity to look at the draft report before it was finalised to make comments. And that all the comments were received from us, they were received from the community group, and Opus have finalised their report. That got delivered on Friday. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but in about 2 weeks' time we've got a workshop to put all the different technical bits together, because there's other views and opinions as well. But within about 2 weeks we should have clarity of direction from us as staff, because ultimately it's our responsibility in terms of doing the right thing for traffic safety.
Excuse me, Chris, who will be at that workshop? That's a workshop open to all councillors.
Sorry, I think that's a workshop just of me and my technical team to make sense
Oh,
of
okay.
all of the technical data at the moment.
Okay, so that has been to the residents?
At this point in time, the residents have got the independent technical report, but that was just on Friday. So
Okay.
I think we had a meeting with the group about a week ago. So Richard and myself met with them about a week ago. We agreed a time frame which wait for the independent report to be done and then give us 2 weeks to collect our thoughts, and then we'll have a view on what we were going to do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Pascoe?
Yeah, just on that Waiwiri Drive, Huntington Drive, can somebody update the action list to include me also, because I attended that meeting on the 30th of September, and for some reason I've been dropped out of ongoing communications. I have attempted once to get back into the group again, but for some reason I'm still on the outer.
Do they not want?
I don't want to be in any group.
I don't think they want me, no.
I don't want to be in any group that includes Rob Pascoe.
I do get phone calls from some of the residents asking me what's going on.
I'll make sure that's the case.
I'd like to step out of that group.
I think that should be an action, okay, just to make sure it does occur.
I do like to be in the in crowd, okay? So.
Your Worship.
This is a question to the General Manager, Sean Hickey. I have to say I am a tad concerned about the not started status of the sustainability principles, given that it does require the advice from the Sustainability Advisory Panel. And we are a very short time away from the 7th of June. And I certainly would indicate that I wouldn't support an extension on that date, so.
So it's probably not quite correct. It has been started.
Right.
And
Good.
so draft terms of reference has been prepared and shared with the sustainability panel.
And the principals are working, you're working your way up with those?
Correct.
Because they're all to come back on June?
That's correct.
Okay, and the second one was, it's to the General Manager, Chris Allen. Are you on track in relation to the first page, item 4, the overbridge, Cobham Waiwiri Drive, the overbridge you're going to be presenting back on the 7th of June? Are you on track for that?
Yes, I'm in my diary this week or early next week. We have a big workshop with the various inputs looking at the bridge costs and everything to just pull all that together, so yes.
All right, so I mean it's clear what we're looking for, right, on that list. Yeah. Okay. And I think that was, yes, that was the only question, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members? Councillor Gallagher?
I had asked about the Ruakura trees, but I'm happy, given the lateness
You
there, to
did.
go offline. I know we were given a written update on that, but I'm happy to go offline.
Okay.
Seems to be-
Anything else?
Sorry, Chair, can I just
Deputy
add
Mayor?
to Councillor Gallagher's question around the Ruakura trees. We had about 2 weeks ago our meeting with Waikato Tainui, and I took the opportunity at the end of the agenda to raise the trees as an issue, and Tipa Mahuta took it on herself to discuss the matter with the governance group. So it's not an action that we're taking, but we've taken the opportunity.
So what you're saying is, while there's been a formal process, as individuals in terms of meeting at a particular important room with Tainui, that we've shared some views, which I think is very helpful.
Councillor Gallagher, Calvin can give you a quick update if you like. We're nearly at the end, so we've got time.
Yeah, so as per the update from the executive update on the 19th of April, we've been through the process. There was a non-notified notification determined. It was less than minor. We had an independent arborist from TGH and compared with our own arborist work on the trees. There was 4 that were determined as significant, but the impact was such that it was no impacted stakeholders. So the substantive motion was that there was non-notified consent to remove the 4 trees. In mitigation, however, they are planting a further 20 large trees. And one of the points I did want to point out, that perhaps when we had this debate last time, is that the trees on the map, as indicated, either as been scheduled variation, are not the only trees that exist. So we talked about 100 odd trees, but there are actually many, many. I stopped at about 237 when I was out there the other day. There's many, many other trees as well. So I just wanted to make sure that you weren't thinking that trees that were on the map were the only trees available.
Bad.
Can we have some definitive map of that? Because this discussion hasn't finished yet, and then it's a little hard to get a handle.
Yeah.
Just a map.
Yeah. What we can do is transpose the map we've given you around the scheduling of the trees and the variation, transpose that onto a photograph so you can actually see all the other pieces.
What about drone evidence?
Watch out for those high wires out there.
Dave might go on.
All right,
He doesn't
so
drive.
I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Are there any other questions on this report? If not, I will move.
Well, that's only.
And that is recommendation on page 77.
Sorry, just with the change that the social housing strategy is now July
To
rather than June.
rather than June, yes. Is there a seconder for that? Yep. Councillor Tooman, thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Assuming there's no debate. Any against? That's carried, thank you. All right, so we have one item left, and that's the late item, and we do have hard copies in the form that it is going to be distributed. And as you know, at the council meeting, by resolution, the council appointed Councillors McPherson and the Deputy Mayor and myself to help improve the final document, and the three of us did pass on many of the comments that you made. I certainly made notes, and I know that the Deputy Mayor and Councillor McPherson did. Is anyone listening to me? We are time critical now, and I also, I do need to explain, because this is a late item, where's my notes? What do I have to say?
Is it the same?
Why this is understanding orders, why it's late. Well, we know why it's late.
No, I think we've accepted it though, when you moved the agenda.
Oh, we have? All right. Oh, I did it then, did I?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
Just the
so,
same as this.
Hey, Ange, just a quick, under
Is it
new build,
oh shoot, yes.
under what would this mean for the community, bullet point 2 is repeated in bullet point 4.
That's been corrected in the current version that's been provided
Oh,
to you.
yeah.
that's
I did.
No, that's what has been handed out, that's corrected in that.
So could I just
No, Sean's going to
ask,
explain that.
I think you need to explain it.
Sean's
Can
going
I-
to explain that.
Yep, if I can just talk to what you've got in front of you.
So hang on, we got one last night, we got a different one now, we got a different one again, which is
So-
the real one.
So that's what he's going to explain?
I'm just going to
Yeah, I
explain
know,
that,
but it's
if I may.
very hard when.
I agree. It's very-
Okay, perhaps I could chair the meeting. Explain what we've got, and
So just in terms of what
Just an
you've got,
idea.
what you've just been distributed in front of you, So this has changed slightly from the version that you were sent last night, and the reason for that is that with the help of the three councillors yesterday, we were making changes right up until the last minute, and so this version that you have in front of you reflects the latest, and I'll just explain, if I may, the changes between the version you have in front of you and the version that you were sent last night. So, Councillor King, you're correct in terms of there was under option 2, build new, one of the last bullet point was meant to have been deleted, as it has now been incorporated into the second bullet point there. So that was an error which we have fixed up. The issues on that inside spread have had a box around them to help them stand out. The yellow box with the issues. So it's purely a design thing. Under option 1, refurbish, we have modified slightly the wording around what is the time frame. So it now reads, to refurbish the theatre would take 2 to 3 years. The theatre would be closed during this time. I'm just going to come back to the borrowing section, because a document has also been a page with some wording changes, proposed wording changes around the cost and how it will be funded, has been distributed with this as well, which is what we are recommending the wording should be, and I'll talk to that briefly in a second. On some of the photos have been updated. On the back page, we have updated a couple of minor copy changes, but nothing significant. The hearings date has been changed to the 7th of July. It was previously written incorrectly, and there have been some other minor design changes on that back page. So no, there have been no major changes in the version that you have today, some fairly sort of minor changes in the overall scheme of things. I guess I would just like to draw your attention to this document, which was also distributed with the hard copy this evening. So that's the one, founders financial information, last paragraph of the 3 options. So with the help of the 3 councillors and the chief executive, we have tried to encapsulate the changes requested by council last week and frame up the cost of the options in a way that makes sense to the public. So under the refurbish option, option 1, we would propose that the wording read, approximately $28 of the rates you pay would go toward repaying the debt each year for the next 20 years. We would not increase your rates to fund this, but council would not meet its debt to revenue ratio of 200% until 2022, rather than in 2020 as currently planned. Under the new build, that piece is pretty much the same, except for the number is $69, and council would not meet its debt to revenue target of 200% until 2024, rather than 2020 as currently planned. And under the demolish and close option, we would not increase your rates to fund this, and the council would meet its debt to revenue target of 200% in 2019.
So, Sean, the text that's on this, under the financials, we can cross off because it's going to be replaced by that.
That's correct.
How do you want to do this, Chair?
So
I've just got a couple of questions.
Yeah, questions, okay. Yeah.
Could I just in relation to this, the wording's fine, but could I just ask or suggest that where it says approximately dollars of the rates you pay would go, I wondered if we should insert the words each year, you pay each year. And then it just makes it clearer that it's a year thing.
Could you say that again, please, Julie?
I'm just saying, if you look at this,
Or annual.
okay, and it says here, approximately $28 of the rates you pay would go. I'm saying the rates you pay each year would go.
Can I just clarify, Your Worship,
Yes.
that then that would, so the each year that we currently have in there, we would take that out. And so it currently says approximately $28 of the rates you pay would go towards repaying the debt each year for the next 20 years.
Yeah, I think it's
And you're
okay.
saying move the each year.
No, I think it's okay to say the each year twice. And the reason I'm saying is because people don't pay their rates yearly. People pay them, you know, on the, and I think they might get confused. That's all. They might think, oh, is that each rates bill I get? I just thought it might need clarification. If you think taking out the each year after repaying the debt, I mean, I'm okay about that.
So you're trying to stop people thinking it's $28 every quarterly
Yeah,
payment?
every time I get my rates notice, yeah. So if you think the each year after debt should be taken out, that's fine. It's fine. I just wanted to clarify. That's fine. And the other question I have is, why do we write percent and not use the
That's changed.
symbol? And the reason I ask that is because, I don't know, I notice we do that in lots. It's just weird, but I wondered why. I know you're going to say a style guide. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in why you just don't use
It
the
wasn't
symbol.
in the last iteration, it was the
Okay,
the
all right.
mark,
I don't
so-
care. And the final
wasn't the words, I'm saying.
It is the style guide, but it's not a ditch to die on.
A style guide doesn't govern this. And could I just ask, in the middle one, build new, I thought that in the second bullet point, what would this mean for our community? The second bullet point, a new theatre would include all the features of the refurbished theatre outlined in option 1, but would. My view is that it's actually a separate point. A new build would not be limited by an existing floor plan, because you had it as a separate point in this one we've all had, and I personally think it is a separate bullet point, and I would just ask that you do that, and it can go immediately under that.
I'm happy to make that change if that's the...
I don't even understand what that means.
So it would say, so a new theatre would include all of the features of the refurbished theatre outlined in option 1.
Full stop.
New bullet point. It would not be limited by...
No, it would be a new build would not be.
Okay, a new build would not be limited by a pre-existing floor plan, etc.
A new theatre.
Simplifise the sentence.
Yeah.
A new theatre would not be.
A new theatre.
If we know the figures, why do we put approximately $28 and $69?
Yeah, good point.
Oh, wow.
Because everyone's rates is based on their capital value and so forth, so that's basically reflects an average. So it is approximate. Everyone's will be slightly different.
So somebody who's got $1 million
It should,
house.
it should be on
probably have
average.
a lot more than $28.
It should say on average, actually.
Yeah.
That's right.
But it's saying on average instead of
Because that
approximately.
makes it look like it's a flat rate for everyone.
Yeah.
So it would say on average $69 of your rates rather
Would
than
cost
approximately.
on average, yep. Councillor Pascoe?
Yeah, that was my first question. I just wondered where the $28.69 came from, and I assumed it was based on the average ratepayer. The average, yeah. The second part of my question is towards repaying debt. Now, does that mean that's interest and principal, or is it principal only?
Interest and principal.
Interest and principal, but no operating costs?
No.
Which we assume to be the same as what we've been previously funding for the founders.
Essentially.
So we're kind of saying this is an additional.
That's correct. So this is the cost of repaying the debt.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cost of repaying the debt, yeah. Okay.
So as you would a mortgage if you were doing it.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions? Comments on the document? Councillor Gallagher?
Sorry, you've got length of time on 1, on the build new, expected time frame. Oh, what is the time frame? 2 to 3, that's all right, done?
Yep.
Done. Have under build new, you're happy that you've stressed if a new theatre could sit on the existing theatres or an alternative location, so that's an adequate statement.
Yeah, we took out, the group thought, given the feedback from council the other day.
That's a point I also...
Yeah, we took out the river or any other specific.
I think Martin's making the point that a lot of people will assume a new build will be on the existing site, but you shouldn't, and I know you, it does say that, or alternative site, it's just, to me, it's not quite strong enough that it could be somewhere else.
or an alternative location.
Yeah,
It's
I
not-
know, it says that, but
Yeah,
yeah.
so.
But the
how-
first sentence there, existing site or a new site, I don't know how simple
Yeah, no,
we can
I
get
think
over
that's
that.
good, that's
You all right?
Yeah,
And it says if on an alternative.
We're asking them, we're not telling them what we've done.
Okay, no, that's right.
all right, is there any other, look, I have to say, I know that things were a little bit tense at the meeting the other day, with, you know, elected members getting involved in the design, but I think that all of the comments were fair, and I'm really happy with this document. I think it's a great outcome, and it is a document that we have to get out there and sell to the public and use and engage and consult on. So it's a tool that, you know, elected members are going to have to stand up and stand by. So I think it's a great outcome. Councillor Pascoe?
Yeah, I'm sorry, there's just another point here on this page here where it says we will not increase your rates to fund us. I wonder whether we're being bold by saying that, and whether perhaps the wording should be your rates. No, that's the same.
The group had come to a consensus to take any language around that out, so I'm not sure why that's back
To
here.
write anything that says increase your rates.
I've put that back in deliberately
Yeah.
because by removing it, it's misleading. So ultimately, if,
Okay.
I'll put so it's specific.
Should we say that there will be no targeted rate?
No, but
No,
the
no,
issue,
Bind
the
it
issue is the
down.
same point that I raised at the council meeting the other day. If we've got to keep something constant, if we don't keep something constant, we've got about 4 or 5
No,
options
Yeah.
in terms of,
I think it's
Right,
the
yeah.
language.
in terms of it. So we, for the 10-year plan, made a recommendation to basically keep
Right.
our rate certainty at 3.8% and vary our debt to revenue
No,
ratio.
that's not
I've
a-
continued that approach in terms of that wording
Right.
here.
Okay.
But can I just ask you, what you're wanting to say is that your rates won't increase to fund?
Because of this.
Yeah, but no, that's misleading in itself.
Is it? Yeah.
Because while your rates in any one year won't increase, they will, you'll be paying for longer under certain.
And that's why we've made it clear to say basically, we've noted the years for the next 20 years. We've also made it clear that basically it's pushing our debt to revenue target
Yes.
out by 3 years. So that gives that,
Yeah.
which is the point that both you and Councillor Mallet made at the council meeting, won't reflect the increased time duration of this. So that's been put in here.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
right.
And the qualifier is your rates to fund this, isn't
Yes.
it? So, yeah.
Yep, that's right. So we'll try to bind it to the particular event.
All right. Everyone comfortable with that? I
Do
certainly
you think
am.
anyone will think that the sort of somewhat derelict-looking building, which I assume was a photo taken during the construction, might think,
It looks like a water tower.
well, it looks like it might be what it is now. As long as no one knows
Maybe.
that that's not it now.
We took that yesterday.
I just think there's too many photos here, you know.
Right, there is a recommendation that I'm happy to move
Can I hear that?
on page with the changes that have been captured. I don't think we need to write those changes down. I think that Lee at the back has got it. Deputy Mayor's giving me the fingers. Deputy Mayor has seconding that. Right, debate, look, as the mover of the motion, I think I've already... Well, I said with any other questions and no one said anything, so look, we're in debate now.
Well, hang on.
Councillor King, I don't know how many times I said, are there any further questions, are there any further questions, are there any further questions?
I didn't hear you say it 3 times.
I'm sorry, but we've had enough questioning. So, look, I'm happy with this. I think it's a great outcome. And as I said before, you know, sometimes elected members...
Excuse me, you're going out to spend a huge amount of money and you won't let the members ask questions.
Councillor King,
Yes?
questions in standing orders are at the discretion of the chair. I did ask the committee, probably at least, and I constantly do it, are there any further questions? Are there any further questions? Many times. Lots of members around here asked questions through this debate.
Madam Chair,
I
we haven't
put-
actually started the debate yet.
Well, we had, I had started speaking.
How does it hurt to have another question?
As the
You
mover.
yourself said it was contentious the other day, but we got through a lot of...
Yes, I did,
So
yes.
why not Councillor King?
Well, I
wasn't
just
there?
wish, okay, look, I'll allow it, but Councillor King, how about listening next time?
Yeah.
All right? Okay, ask your question. Just, yeah.
Does this committee have the final authority? Or does this have to go back to full council? And on this matter?
No, council's deferred it to this committee, hasn't it?
Council gave us the authority.
Can you show me that in the resolution?
Yes, we made the resolution last week.
The resolution reads,
It's on page, where is it?
It's in the report.
It's on page 3 of the report.
That's right.
it's B, so the Founders Theatre engagement document is further improved with the assistance of some councillors, McPherson, Chesterman, O'Leary, and reported back to the Strategy and Policy Committee on 3rd of May.
Where's the authority there for this committee to make that decision? Without
Council
it going
gave
back to
it the
full council?
authority.
Where does it say that in the
It
resolution?
doesn't have to. Council resolved that A, B, C and D and E. It doesn't have to go back to council again.
It doesn't specifically say that. It's probably poorly worded motion. I know it meant that.
Should have been perhaps council delegates to make a final decision, something.
So the council approved the report was received, come back to be in a sec, but talk to agreeing the engagement process. So it's implying that we're going to proceed in the engagement period. I agree that it wasn't clear, but it was in terms of wording here, but the intent was that effectively we wanted to expedite the process and it would come back to this committee for sign-off.
Where does it say that in the resolution?
Well, my explanation there was inferred. It's not clear, but it was inferred by the discussion of the committee.
Well, I suggest we hold the meeting, we'll call in our legal advisors, we'll go out and have dinner, and then come back and take the advice.
I mean, E in there, CE.
Well, actually, to be honest, we're about $80,000 underspent on councillor expenses. That makes some sense.
In E, okay,
We're
committee members,
tens
come on.
of thousands of dollars underspent.
Yeah, hang on. E does say, again, from the council resolution, staff report to the 28th of July meeting on the consultation. So I suppose, again, what you said, it's in...
Delegated authority is what's not clearly put in there. That's all that he's raising, I guess.
You're able to make this decision, that's all.
There's plenty of implications, but not not specific.
Chair, the intent was clear.
Yeah, it was.
And I did invite Councillor King to join the councillors on the review committee, but he declined, and while I was out of the room, suspect he may have slipped my name back in there. So the intent was there to sign off, if you like, the final version, to come to this committee to say, here is the final version as worked over by the 3 councillors. And I have to say, all 3 councillors made, in my view, significant contributions to that document.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. So, Councillor King, any further questions? I mean,
No,
it may
this
not be...
committee does not have the authority to make this decision.
Well,
It
we
needs to
do
go
it,
back to
council
full council.
delegates to us. Yes.
That needs to be made from full council, not through this committee.
Well, no, but council has the authority to delegate down to any standing committee or
That
subcommittee.
didn't happen in the resolution.
In terms of process, the Chief Executive can advise on that. The members ask the Chief Executive to give advice and you move on from that,
Okay,
based on that advice.
Yes, he's going to do that now.
He's just looking up his standing orders at the moment.
Not standing orders, it's in the reference to the committee.
Oh, well.
Councillor King can always put in an amendment to delay the decision, and if he gets support around the table, that would change the outcome.
I think if a member raises a constitutional point, then they've got the right to have at least advice from the CEO, if not from someone else before. It's not a illogical one.
So when council adopted the recommendation D, which was the engagement period, be from the process for public engagement, as we set out in the report, is approved, and when the engagement period from the date of X to Y, the intention was that it effectively will be locked in place following the decision made with this committee to proceed. So the expectation, and even though that clause definitely wasn't put in there, I admit it wasn't there, but the expectation by adopting C and D would be that this committee have the delegation to proceed.
So that's your advice?
That's my advice.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor King, do you have any further questions?
If legal advice should show that this council doesn't have, that this committee doesn't have that delegation, where would we stand then?
With what, sorry?
Where would we stand?
Oh, where would we stand?
CE can answer that.
I'm not too sure whether or not it's a question for our lawyers, to be fair.
Chair, he's asked a question, Chief Executive's replied, we should move into debate.
Well, we were in debate, and I had a request from
We should move
councillors.
back into
The
debate.
chair needs to probably rule on the chief executive's advice, because it's a constitutional point that's been raised. That would be what normally happens.
I'm looking at the governance.
Could we have an emergency council?
Yes, yes, definitely a good idea.
Confirm whatever we decide.
Well, emergency council meetings, 5 minutes. It's got to have a good reason for an emergency, don't it?
This is the document, we've already approved
Well,
it.
we just set the place
The
on
decision
fire.
to publish, so it's just about a document. I think it's just getting way on 50. We have approved public.
No, they're not others.
And we have approved. We've done all that.
I do not know that as a government.
What's the wording?
It doesn't, procedure miss other.
What's the wording that would be required for this to be clear in that resolution?
Look, okay, I'm just looking at the governance structure. It's not going to help with some comment. Where's the CE? But we have had an answer from the CE. We need to move on.
It wasn't well written, or it wasn't clearly written.
We do, just a reminder, this committee does a lot of work where we do go out and consult, and it doesn't always come back to us, where this committee's often the workhorse, as our subcommittees do work and then delegate up to or refer up to council. So, and maybe the wording should have been a little bit tighter, but I think we all understood at the council meeting exactly what was going on. So I don't think we can move to any tighter resolution than what we've got, and we need to deal with it. So,
Firstly, the transcript of the meeting would show that it was definitely the intent of this of the council to actually give it to the committee for approval. Secondly, the process was approved for consultation, which is the important part of when you go out for consultation, was approved by the council, and that was resolutions, sorry I don't have with me anymore, the last 3 resolutions of the council. And the substance of the consultation document has been reviewed by our lawyers and meets the requirements of the special consultative process. So I am comfortable with that advice.
right, Councillor King, do you have any further questions?
And if it's proved that this committee doesn't have the authority, what will the outcome be? If we charge ahead now, what will the outcome be?
The committee, because all the committee is doing is signing off the substantive changes from a design point of view. As long as the committee doesn't make a recommendation today that actually weakens this from a legal perspective, and we've had it reviewed by our lawyers and that's not the case, we're in a good position. As long as none of the changes today weaken this document from a legal prescriptive position from a special consultative process.
Are we still in a position where no advertising space has been booked and locked in, which we were assured at the last meeting that that was the case?
Yes.
So nothing's been locked in? You've booked stuff, but you haven't locked it in?
We've got tentative bookings, nothing has been locked in.
Do you have any outstanding questions, Councillor King?
Can I suggest, Madam Chair, that at the end of this item, that we do whatever we're going to do, and but also refer it back to the next committee meeting for the next council meeting, I should say, for approval, so that in case there's any questions arising, it shows that we've recognised there's at least an ambiguity in the original delegation. And we do that with some other things. We do that for submissions. We have to put them in, and then we do reserve the right to pull the plug. No, I haven't heard us taking it.
Okay. I have moved the staff recommendation, and I'm very happy with the engagement document and where we are and the process and the delegation through council. So if you want to move an amendment to do that, because under D, it also says the engagement period be from the date of the final approval of the engagement document. So, I mean, that's not likely to change. But if you want to move an amendment, Councillor McPherson, to do that, then I can take that amendment.
Well, the record will just show that I suggested a way to cover our tracks that you didn't decided not to take it, and that's if there is any issue like Councillor King just asked about, then it will show that you didn't take an opportunity to actually cover that off as well. That's all.
Yeah, I know, I understand that, but my opinion is
it's not an amendment I'm trying to move.
Well, I know, but I've moved the recommendation of the report because I am comfortable that we're following due process, that we are delegated to do what the council has delegated to us in the resolution. So I'm comfortable with the process and the engagement document.
I'm comfortable that the intent was there.
Yeah.
But I'm not comfortable that the wording matches the intent.
Yeah, all right.
That's all.
Okay. All right, if there are no further questions, I've moved, I don't know, do we have a seconder? The Deputy Mayor, that's right. I did debate, so I'm not going to bother debating again.
Seems a long time ago now.
Are there any further speakers? Your Worship?
I think this is a red herring, and I think all councillors, particularly those experienced councillors, will know that if there is any uncertainty about wording in a resolution, the transcript is checked for intent. And so I commend you, Chair, for the decision that you've made in terms of the way to proceed, because it is right. And furthermore, this is about agreeing about the content of a document. It is not about a resolution to do with the process or the fact that we're even doing this, because that has already been taken care of in the council. So the process here is absolutely the correct one, and I think that we've just got to get on with it. So I'm just commending you, Chair, for that decision, because I thoroughly support it.
Thank you. Right, any further speakers? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Look, I'd like to acknowledge the staff in particular. It's always very difficult when you have 13 councillors and a mayor wanting to write a document, a group of staff members wanting to write a document, and argy-bargy over the wording. So I think the final outcome is a very good outcome, and people did work at the weekend to bring this here today. And I think it is a document that will be readily understood by the public, and I believe that we will be surprised, not at the result, because I can't suggest what that might be, but we will be surprised at the level of interest in this and in the number of submissions we receive through the processes for people to communicate their views to us. So pass on my thanks to the staff.
Thank you. Councillor King?
I have an amendment to put up.
Can we put an amendment up during debate?
Any time before the vote.
Yes, okay. Oh, I was asking democracy, thanks. Okay, what's your amendment?
Democracy have it.
Pardon?
Democracy have it.
Democracy have it. Oh, okay. Are you going to put that on the board? All right.
The blue screen.
Yeah.
Remember that? Blue screen of death?
Oops. Right, is there a seconder for Councillor King's amendment?
What is it that the founders engagement document?
Councillor Mallett is seconding that.
It's similar to something I've seconded previously.
Just feeling that there is.
Right,
Better luck this time.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
Okay, we'll continue with debate, and I ask that people debate the two items together. So, further speakers, Councillor Tooman.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think we have to look at what the intention is here. And the way I understand it is this is really just to go out to the public, get the public feedback before any decision is made on the future of the Founders Theatre. When I look back at the history of what's happened so far, is at a council briefing, a number of councillors there told the staff that they wanted the number of photographs reduced on the document which was shown. Following that, at the last council meeting, of course, the poor council staff were told, let's have some photographs back in there. So, as a staff member, they must be very, very confused as to what we actually are wanting of this. And as a result of that, of course, there's 3 councillors, joint staff, and they've come up with this document here. To me, this looks a pretty good document. It's pretty easy to follow, and I think at the end of the day, what are we trying to achieve here? All we're trying to do is to get this document out here to the public, get the public feedback before we make any decisions on the future of the Founders Theatre. It's no big deal. Nobody's going to die, so let's get on with it.
Further speakers? Councillor Gallagher, King, and then Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. The Principal Officer has given a set of advice. If he reflects and feels that he may need further opinion, then obviously he will convey that. That's clear. Obviously, until such time as I hear differently, then I take the Principal Officer's advice. That's about process. I don't think people should be personally criticised because they want to double-check that. That's quite legit. And the Principal Officer has given us advice. It is his call as to whether or not he wants to turn that over and seek further advice. And if suddenly he felt we were outside of any standing orders under delegation, and that's the only issue, then obviously it's very easy to convene an urgent council meeting to get the show on the road, so to speak. So I'm taking that advice as I've received it in all good faith, and will proceed and vote for the motion accordingly. The other thing which I would say is that the interesting is that there's a little bit about funding and debt. I'm unsure at this stage how much decision in the end this outgoing council will make. And let's be crystal clear, there becomes a moral imperative as a council is in its dying stages as to how much it can commit a city to a particular course of action. And obviously we'll work through that process. And I have to a degree an open mind on that, but certainly once you're engaging in a new project, for example, it could very much be a heck of a lot of consultation, and this council can do a heck of a lot of work, but I suspect the new council will be the one that will be probably making a decision, and people, candidates will be lined up election time as to direction. I previously talked about the need to have a very robust conversation around regional funding, even if neighbouring TAs say no, or maybe let's have that discussion. I perhaps would have liked in this document that to be a little bit more explicit, but look, I think overall this is a good document. And obviously, as the Deputy Mayor's assured me, it's pretty obvious when you say either on the existing site or a new site, that's enough of a lead for people to start coming up with suggestions and ideas re a new potential site. I do think, however, the issue of rating versus loan, that kind of thing, is something that we cannot bind unduly an incoming council in terms of the funding mix. But I agree, I think we're hopefully going to be overwhelmed by public interest around the region, and we'll listen very sincerely and with an open mind to the really good ideas and that will be coming through.
Sorry, thanks, Councillor Gallagher. I've got Councillor King, McPherson, and then the Deputy Mayor.
Option one's for a refurbish is $20 million. $20 million is a guess. We just don't know. We haven't had a seismic report done. Option two is a rebuild of $50 million. The article doesn't really say whether that includes fit outs or not. It clearly says it doesn't include grounds and car park. But we don't really know whether we need to go there or not because we haven't had a seismic report done. And option three is to close and demolish. but we actually don't know because we haven't had a seismic report done. The seismic report's underway. Why wouldn't we wait for the 2 months for that to come back? This process is costing over $100,000, I think, to go out for public consultation when we don't know on option 1, 2 or 3. We don't have the report, we don't have the evidence, we don't have the facts. I'm just suggesting that we wait. A bit of wisdom here, team, a bit of wisdom. Wait for the report and then we'll know how to consult properly. I know I've said this all before, but nothing's changed. We still haven't got the report back. So I just urge you to wait, get the report, and then go to public consultation. At that stage, once we've got the report, we'll know which way we're going to go anyway. And we'll still go out. I'm not saying don't go to public consultation, but let's get the facts together first. This is a minimum shutdown of 3 years and up to 5 years, 6 years, up to 6 years, according to the report we're putting out. I'm saying wait for the 2 months until we get the report. We're rushing. We just need to slow this down and wait for the report. Just think about it. Just let it sink in. Let it sink in when the report comes back and we get some evidence. Surely you would wait. Surely it makes sense to wait. And why wouldn't you? Just slow it down. Wait for the report. I'm not saying don't spend the money. I'm saying let's get some direction first so we see where to go. I'm not saying I don't want a founders in the city. I'm not saying I don't want to perform a theatre in the city. I'm not against the arts. I'm just saying just wait for the report. So I just urge you to vote for the amendment and think through what's going to happen when you guys have sat here gung-ho, go, and the report comes back and we get clear direction and we've blown over $100,000 of city money. We've got everybody out there excited and moving in different directions when we don't even know what the outcome should be. So just slow down, guys. Think it through carefully and think about what's going to happen in 2 months' time when that report does come back and how you're going to feel. I hope you're not haunted by the decision you're about to make.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes, I think the first two speakers in this debate, Councillors Tooman and Gallagher, were somewhat confused because this is not a resolution, an amendment referring to the technical constitutional point that was raised. There's nothing to do with that at all. I think you just need to put that aside. That's been dealt with one way or another to people's satisfaction or not, but it's been dealt with. So now we're on to the actual motion. Do we go ahead now or do we delay for the short period that the amendment suggests? And we did have the same debate once before, or twice before maybe, but the point I think is a logical one still remains. I am clear that there's a good chance of the resolution going through, so I want to make sure I went on the working party because I want to make sure this document was as good and clear as possible. And I think it's improved because of the work that was done by everyone, and that's fine. And if it goes ahead, we'll use this. But I still think you'd be a lot smarter to wait for another month to 6 weeks for a seismic report and make sure that those figures that you've got in the circles at the top, at least at the orange and the ochre or yellow, are more accurate, are better, have more rigour behind them. At the moment, they're really nothing more than guesstimates, sort of quantity surveyors' guesstimates. Given the state of play in terms of seismic strengthening costs that's coming to the fore in New Zealand at the moment, we would be a bit silly. We would definitely look silly if a report came back that dramatically changed those when we could have waited for a month. and got it right and put the same document out with correct figures on the top. And even if they're the same figures, I'm not sure that it hurts us. I don't think that there's an almighty concern for speed here. I think there's an almighty concern for getting it right, and I've heard almost everyone round the table say that. Yet there is one aspect that we're not sure about that is on the way to being firmed up. So, you know, I think Councillor King's amendment makes sense and is not going to chuck the baby out with the bathwater. It's not saying anything that's been done in terms of getting this ready, getting the consultation process ready. It's not saying anything's been done wrongly there. It just says tie-ho for a bit, just check our facts and figures and then go for it. There seems to be some rush to get it done in the lifespan of this council. We may or may not be able to do that if we follow that there, but how does that matter against getting it right?
Deputy Mayor? No. Councillor Mallett?
Just really quick. The amendment does allow us to find, to have information that could completely obliterate option one. If that seismic report comes back real bad, option one could be removed off the table.
Or double in cost.
Not necessarily.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, any further speakers? I moved this item, so I'll just have a quick right of reply. When we went to visit Founders Theatre, I know I asked, and in subsequent briefings and meetings with the GM after that, members asked around the seismic report, and those questions were very succinct and to the point, and that was, what is the impact of the figures if the seismic report came back worst case scenario? And the GM assured us many times, and the CE has assured us, or certainly me, that that figure is 20 million. Worst case scenario seismic report, the 20 million will cover that. So the risk in this, and it's set out in option one quite clearly, it says $13 million is set aside. But then it talks about the issues, it talks about the earthquake strengthening and says it is estimated to be 20 million. But that is, the GM gave us his word and his professional opinion that that is built, the worst case scenario is 20 million. And I haven't heard any information and have not been told that that is different. So I guess worst case scenario is built in. We've told the public that. In actual fact, if the seismic report comes back, it could be...
Point of order. I don't believe that the General Manager has ever told the meeting here that the worst case scenario is covered. He said that...
Sorry.
Can we have that checked?
Can we have
no,
check?
So my point of order relates to factual
To
and
factual,
accuracy.
yes, yep. We don't have the GM here.
Unfortunately, Sean had an external meeting that he couldn't move, so he's unable to respond to that.
Sorry.
But is that correct? Because that's certainly my understanding.
Well, Chad said it, and the General Manager was sitting right beside Chad and didn't correct him.
So assertions to that effect were made, and GM supported that position.
Well, I believe I asked at Founders Theatre and I asked in this chamber, and I'm sure that that's a matter on YouTube as well.
So who was responsible, the General Manager or the CEO, if that's not the worst case scenario? We're going to, maybe that's a rhetorical question we're going to find out soon.
Thanks,
I hope you object to that.
Well, I mean, we can only make these decisions on the information we've given, and that's certainly been a consistent message that I've received. So that's what gives me comfort. I don't really understand the whole earthquake reporting, if I can finish my debate, but, you know, I guess if it worst case scenario was 10 out of 10 and we get a 7 out of 10, you know, we get a few dollars back to the ratepayer. So I guess that's the buffer zone between the 13 and the 20 million as I understand it and as the information that's been given to me. So that's I guess my right to reply, just to cover off some of the comments made in the chamber.
So, clarification on your speech. Is the CE comfortable that we will do this under $20 million?
It's option A.
Well, we're going out and consulting with that.
Asking the CEO.
I've had the same assertions from my team to the extent that this council has, and the most current assertions were made at this council in the end of March to that extent.
Okay.
Can I just ask really quickly, Sean's not a seismic expert, is he?
No, it's not.
Okay, and I'm not being flippant here, no, and you're not, no, I'm not. Chad not. So I just think you're sticking your neck out by needlessly sticking your neck out.
So the challenge that was provided to from a refurbished budget point of view was on the premise that the entire backstage house was pulled down, and the extent of rebuild required for the auditorium roof reflected the level of, or the worst case scenario in terms of seismic strength of that roof, and that's the quotes that were received back reflected that, and that's, I believe, where the general manager's assertions are coming from, or the assertions that have been provided to council have come from.
What about the rest of the
Yeah, committee members, look, I mean, that's not an opinion of mine, that's based on information that we have constantly been given. So I have exercised my right of reply, which does close the debate. I'm going to put the amendment then. So we'll do that on the hands. All those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hands.
Those in favour of the amendment are councillors Gallagher, King, McPherson, Green and Mallet.
And those against the amendment?
Are councillors O'Leary, Chesterman, Young, Her Worship the Mayor Hardacre, Pascoe and Tooman.
And that's been carried?
No.
Sorry, that's been
No,
lost.
the amendment has been lost, so we now will be voting on the motion.
Thank you. So I will put the motion to the vote on the show of hands. All those in favour?
Those for the motion are councillors O'Leary, Chesterman, Young, Gallagher, Her Worship the Mayor Hardacre, councillors Pascoe, McPherson and Tooman.
And those against?
Those against the motion are councillors King, Green and Mallet. The motion is carried.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair, do we have an update on the date that the seismic report is due to be returned?
I don't have any further
Without
information.
GM here?
Last week's council meeting, councillor.
Yeah, he was going to go away and talk to them, and in fact he said he was trying to hurry them up.
So it was still expected at the end of June. He left a note to say that it was still
Can we
end of
have
June.
that circulated
So it's still
to
when?
council?
End of
June?
End of June.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much everyone. The meeting's closed.